You know, an arena of expressive culture that we haven't talked about yet is that of film.
Yeah.
And it's so rich and so vibrant. There's an amazing energy, not just in Oklahoma, but nationally and internationally for native film. Could you talk to us a little bit about that?
I would love to, and the challenge will be for me to quit talking about film, right? You're absolutely right. It's one of the most exciting spots for self-expression going on in indigenous country anywhere. And recognizing that, we've started up the Native Crossroads Film Festival here at OU. We hope to be in its second year in the spring of 14. The first one went great, and as it turns out, I think people are just really excited to see American Indian films. They're telling stories in different ways. They look different, even to some degree. I don't think that you could say that there is an indigenous aesthetic visual, but I think there are certainly visual differences coming out of American Indian films, in the same way that there would be with art, right? There are some comparable things happening. But as it turns out, American Indians have been involved in film here in Oklahoma almost since film's beginning, right? Recently, the Historical Society unearthed a silent film, Daughter of Dawn, that featured a lot of American Indian performers, especially the folks back west, Kiowas and Comanches. And recently they had a showing, right, where they were able to see this film for one of the very first times after it was restored, and they were recognizing their family members up there on the screen. That was, I think, really fantastic. Will Rogers, again, was very early on involved in film and did some really pretty funny stuff. He did some, kind of formulaic stuff too, as happens to everybody. But some of his work with John Ford is really worth looking back at. It's relatively complicated, even as Ford was making stuff like The Searchers and Stagecoach, that featured Indians dying by the droves off of the back of horses. He was working with Will Rogers very closely on 3 films, where even though he's not playing American Indians, there's something really kind of complicated about the racial identities that he is playing in there. A few years later, several years later, guys like Bob Hicks, a Creek filmmaker, did a short film called Return of the Country that looks back at some of those stereotypes of American Indians in films and starts telling things in much decidedly different and, again, very energetic and oftentimes parodic ways. Really fantastic stuff going on there. There were a few other guys that sort of nobody really knows about. There were some brothers. Edwin Carey and his brothers Wallace and Phineas Fox were Chickasaws, and for a long time we thought that Smoke Signals was the very first film written and directed and produced.
Discovered the genre.
Yeah, exactly. As it turns out, these guys were making tons and tons of movies, like in the 1950s. A lot of them were kind of terrible, truth be told, and kind of B-roll short films. But they were working with guys like Bela Lugosi doing these horror films. A
lot of people don't know that one.
I don't think I knew that. Yeah, that's no kidding.
Yeah.
Oh, how interesting. Yeah. But as it turns out, that legacy may have been forgotten, but a lot of filmmakers, contemporary filmmakers, sort of didn't care, and they, in many ways, kind of reinvented the genre. Yeah. So what we're going to watch by Sterling Harjo is doing some fantastic things. As people watch that, I think they ought to pay attention to especially things like the relationship the camera has with land, how it is that color is getting used to tell part of the story there in very subtle kinds of ways. 2, we'll see films in this unit by Jeff Palmer, who's doing some really kind of very
experimental work.
Yeah. It doesn't make everything very obvious. It's not going to declare to us its purpose. But one of the things that it will do is speak very evocatively to us. And to just kind of sit and watch and let it unfold can really turn into a powerful experience.
So perhaps a new chapter in the storytelling traditions that come out of not just the Kiowa community, but Native communities in general.
I think that's really astutely put. Yeah, to see how it is that people are adapting their stories to contemporary mediums, into places even like YouTube, where anyone can get and post what it is that's coming out of their hearts and minds, is carrying on a long line of adaptation.